Hello and welcome to the University of Leicester. I'm talking to you from the School of Healthcare and in the Department of Midwifery. I've got a student ambassador with me today called Holly, who's going to talk to you for some of the slides later on. Please, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat and we'll answer those at the end. Hopefully, throughout this presentation, we'll answer your questions as we go along anyway and give you all the information you want to hear. So you're very welcome to Leicester. I'm going to run through a few slides and just talk to you about why you might want to study at Leicester, study midwifery at Leicester. I'm going to tell you a bit about our course and what makes us unique and what makes us stand out from the crowd and why you might want to come to us. And then we're going to look at the admission and entry requirements. So you're probably thinking about your UCAS form right now, grades and things like that. So I'm going to answer all those questions as well. Yeah. Okay. So you might have noticed that our course is called something a bit different to other midwifery courses. So we're called an MSci Midwifery with Leadership. And what that means is rather than being a BSc, which most midwifery courses are, we have an integrated master's in our course, which makes it an extra year long. So it's a 4-year course rather than a 3-year. You come out with exactly the same qualification as being a midwife, so you'll go on the register as being a midwife. However, you have an integrated master's all the way through every year in leadership. So what we're doing is creating you to have a few more tools to your belt to maybe develop your career. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this unique and pioneering course. Now, the reason we've integrated the master's through is that you could do a master's at any point after you've done a degree, but you have to pay for it afterwards and you don't get funding, and student finance can be a bit tricky sometimes. And maybe like me, if you wanted to do a master's, I did it when I had a family and I had a mortgage to pay and a job, and it makes it a bit trickier because you have to balance all those things. Whereas our integrated masters, it's already in the course, and so you're already in the zone of working, and because of that you also get the learning support fund. So I don't know if you know about that, but there's NHS England money, which is £5,000 a year you get to help you study healthcare subjects. That's also integrated, so you also get that for the 4th year as well. Now this master's part isn't just an add-on at the end, it's, as I said, integrated throughout. So every year we learn about leadership and about leading ourselves, and we go through a process of leading in teams, in organisations, and then we look at becoming a change maker in our final year. And that's got implications in the future. We'll tell you that in a little bit in terms of how the curriculum runs. Our course is approved against the Future Midwifery Standards. So what that means is that Nursing and Midwifery Council has a certain amount of proficiencies and skills that you have to do to go on the register as a newly qualified midwife. So we're approved against that. So we've been validated to provide this course. Here in Leicester, we have a wide range of placements, lots of different places that you'll be going to study, to add to your learning and to give you extra parts of the jigsaw to pull all that learning together to give you a really good holistic view of providing care as a midwife. We have outstanding facilities. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that as we go along. And as a School of Healthcare, we have 40 years of experience. So Leicester is a really good place to be. So how the course works, again, going back to the traditional BSc for midwifery, most courses, if you've looked at other universities and looked at prospectuses and things like that, the 3-year course means that you have quite little holidays. So the Nursing and Midwifery Council specify that you have to do so many hours of placement and theory before you can go on the register. Now here at our university we have 4,800 hours that we have to achieve. The NMC specifies 4,600. We've got a few extra in there, but if you've got to achieve those hours over 3 years, it means you have less holiday time. Because we spread those hours over 4 years, it means we follow the university academic year, so you get a good bulk of holiday at Easter, at Christmas, and 11 weeks over the summer, which is fantastic because it means you can go home and relax, you know, recuperate after a busy term. You can earn some money, you could go traveling if you want. So you'd be learning over 35 weeks of the year, which is quite different to other programs. Our programme is 50% theory and 50% practice. So that means it's a really nice mix. So you'll be learning in the classroom, but you'll also be learning on the job really from very early on, and that's really exciting because it means it really drives you. You're really seeing what's happening, getting your hands dirty as soon as really. And the pattern we tend to follow is we do 6 weeks of theory, or 5 to 6 weeks of theory in the classroom with all our peers, with all our cohort, and then you go out into placement. So it tends to be you get 3 of those a year. So 3 blocks of theory, 3 blocks of placement, which again just keeps you going throughout the year because it's always changing and it keeps you interested. Here at Leicester, we do quite a lot of interprofessional learning. And the reason we do that is because I don't know if you've looked in the news, but it's worth doing a bit of a Google. But there are a lot of quite damning maternity reports right now. Midwifery is in a funny place. There are lots of, or over the last decade, there's been a good few reports that talk about the safety of midwifery, the environment, the culture and things. And lots of the things that come out of this report is that where hospitals are failing, it's because they don't work well as a team. They don't work with doctors, nurses, different professions very well, and communication is really terrible. So the reason, or one of the reasons we developed this course is to really work on that team playing and being able to work interdisciplinary, so across different disciplines, to appreciate each other's roles and know how we fit in together. So we do quite a lot of our training with nurses, and we have a lot of shared modules with nursing students, which is really good. And we also do some with physios and who have I forgotten? Radiography, medics as well. And we do some bits with ODP students as well. And again, it just brings that really good appreciation of people's roles and what they do in the workplace as well. The course structure here on this page, it talks about doing an elective, but I'm going to come on to that in a little bit, so hold on for that. I am going to pass on to Holly now, who's going to tell you a little bit what a typical placement and theory block looks like.
Hello everyone. So as Lucy's just said, this is an example of how the year would run. So this is just an example of how your first year might be. So we have the 3 placement blocks, and those are quite nicely, spaced apart. You've got your community placement, you've got labour/delivery suite, and then you've got your antenatal and postnatal ward placement. These will each be about 5 or 6 weeks long, so you've got a nice chunk of time out on placement. Might not necessarily be in this order, but depending on capacity and how many students there are, but you'll definitely have all of those 3 placements throughout the year. And as you can see on here, there's a lot of study blocks in between, so some of those are shared with the nurses, especially in those first few months, depending on what modules you've got. And then, as you can see, that nice green bit there as well. If you've not got any time to make up in the summer, or you've not got any exams or assignments to resit, you've got that really nice long summer break. And as Lucy said, you do get your Easter and your Christmas holidays as well. So they're 3 weeks each. So that's really nice. And I think it really breaks up the year for you as well. But it's, just an example of how the year would run. But back to Lucy.
Thanks, Holly. Forgot to tell you, Holly's a 4th year student midwife, so she can see the end of this now. She's worked really hard. So that bit that Holly was telling you about, that green block there, being able to do resits and things like that is really good. The flexibility to do that again comes with this MSci course rather than a traditional BSc, where the holidays are very short. So if you have time to make up, sometimes you have to repeat the year, whereas we have got that flexibility, if life happens and you had to take a bit of time off. Okay, moving on. You might want to take a picture of this. I'm not going to talk in too much detail about the different modules per year, but I do want to give a little bit of an outline. So every year we do a module in participating in care. So that's our practice module, where we're learning all about the hands-on skills, the theory side of it, and then you go out and do the things that you've learnt about as well. So within that module, you also have to do a maths test as well. So sorry to tell you about that. And so that's why we specifically asked for maths at GCSE. In the first year, you have to pass that maths test with 80%. And I'll tell you more about that as we go on through the years. We do a really good grounding in anatomy and physiology in the first year, and that's shared with nurses as well, because everything we're going to learn is based upon that anatomy and physiology. So if you've done A-level biology, that's going to be more like revision for you, but then we'll do the applied side and working it towards pregnancy as well. The first module in leadership is coming in this year, and we're talking all about the self. So we're finding out who you are as a person, sort of looking at your personality, knowing who you are, maybe the reason why you do certain things. So learning how to lead yourself is really important before we start thinking of bigger as well. We also do a shared module, professional development, where we're thinking about professional ideas, communications, starting to appreciate each other's roles as well. And every year we have a research module, because research underpins everything we do. So we don't just advise people things in healthcare because it's what we've always done. We advise them because we have evidence and we have research. So we teach our students how to analyse research and see whether it's robust and see if it's sound, so that you can then start to apply some of the things that you've learned in your practice. Okay, let's move on to year 2. Holly, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just wait for the screen to switch over. So I know we build upon the leadership every year, so we do build upon that, and in year 2 it's more about leading the team as opposed to the self. And that's really interesting, you know, to build upon that module. The maths goes up to a 90% to pass, but obviously it is really important that you have those skills, and there's lots of support options there if, you know, maths is something that you struggle with. You've obviously got your practice module, so that's when you're out on placement, and that contributes again towards that. We've also got some more interesting modules this year, things like mental health, learning all about like your people with additional care needs, things that, you know, they may have conditions with. We do something called the full systematic physical examination of the newborn, which is really interesting. Lots of physical skills to learn there. We learn more about conditions that women may have, things like diabetes, a condition called preeclampsia, things like that, which is really, really interesting. And then we've got a research module just at the bottom there as well. And that's another thing that we build on upon each year as well.
So like Holly said, we have a bit of a spiral curriculum. So it's not that we're repeating things every year, but we're building in depth as we go along. So the first year we look at lots about sort of routine care and normality, and, you know, what sort of expected care without complications. Second year is about additional care, like Holly said. Third year we're looking at more like emergencies and things like where you really need to step up your skills and really look outside the box and use other people as well to help keep women and their babies safe as well. The leadership now has gone up to leading in organisations. So we think a little bit more about how does that impact the care, and what's the environment like, what's the culture like, how can we change those things. And in the third year, very excitingly, we have our elective module. Now, I know lots of programs do have elective modules, but we go out for 5 weeks. Now, it's not a practical elective, so you're not going to work somewhere else, but it's still got that leadership aspect. But you can go anywhere in the world. You can go to America, to Australia, anywhere that you want, where there's an interest for you, where you can have a placement where there's a leadership aspect. So sort of an observational placement. But this really develops you, and it really makes to start your thinking about maybe where you're going to work in the future, or ideas that work really well in different countries. Maybe you can bring them into UK practice as well. And from what I've observed, students come back, they've really grown up quite a lot after this module, because you've really had to think outside the box and develop a lot of your skills and develop a lot of transferable skills as well. Now, some people choose to go abroad. You don't have to go abroad. Lots of people also stay in the UK and they develop their networking in this country, and maybe that's because they're going to work in this country, and maybe they want to work, do an elective at the place where they want to work as well. Equally of value. So lots of different places that people go. Other modules that we do this year, we look at pharmacology module. So we're thinking all about the medications that people may have to keep them safe in pregnancy, and how that potentially can affect a baby as well, and things like that. I'm also looking at emergencies where you've got to be really hot at your skills drills to be able to manage those skills where you're the lead professional. And then finally moving on to year 4. That's Holly again. Holly's going to tell you about this because she actually is in year 4, so she's got a real lived experience.
Yeah, so like Lucy said, this is, my year, so it's pretty fresh for me right now. So the maths again is 100% this year. But again, you still get lots of support and there's lots of opportunities to practice those. There's actually a maths test that goes out every day that you can practice if you wish to. You've got your midwifery practice again with your placement. And this year is very much about your dissertation and writing that. Obviously, we have the module in year 3 that builds upon this. So I'm using a lot of what I did last year research-wise in my dissertation this year, and it's made it a lot smoother, a lot easier research-wise. You've then got your final leadership module, really interesting, and learning all about the management of change and building upon that from the years that you've done before. And then we also have a global module this year, which is really interesting. And it opens up those perspectives of how healthcare is in developing countries. And it opens those avenues. And especially if you are thinking about working abroad, it is just a really interesting module. And then we've got preparation for professional practice. So that we are ready to go out when we qualify. So some very exciting modules there. So yeah, hopefully they'll help me when I'm finishing the end of this year. But yeah, back to Lucy.
So we know that everyone's not the same. We all learn in different ways and we all study in different ways. And because of that, our programme is quite varied and we really do develop independent learners. So being at university is a bit different to being at school or college because you're kind of guided through it, but maybe not led quite so much as you are at school or college. So you have to go away and look at extra things and do your own digging and do your own research. And actually, you can always, you can kind of make a bespoke program really. So if you have an interest in a particular subject, say like for me, I've worked on the home birth team and I love the idea of home birth, you can probably sort of fit that into assignments through every year and sort of work on that and develop it and go into more depth as each year goes along. And by the end of it, you're going to be an absolute expert on that because you've done so much research and learning on that because you are that independent learner, and there is that option to do that. Now, teaching and learning at the university, again, is different to school. So we facilitate that through a different blend of lectures where you'll be learning with your peers in a classroom. But we also have anatomy tutorials. We use a dissection room as well to teach you where there are actual bodies, where anatomy has a completely different spin when you see it in real life rather than in a book or AI or something like that. You can see it for real. It's an optional thing. You don't have to do it. We also learn through seminars and workshops. We have small group discussions, tutorials, maybe one-to-one with module leaders. We do online learning as well. So all the maths that Holly was talking about, we have a package called Safe Medicate where it takes you through the learning module by module. And like Holly said, you can practice that every day. And of course, we do a lot of simulation and role play as well. We develop skills, thinking how would that feel, putting ourselves in that person's shoes, and how would that feel being that practitioner in that sort of area. That range of learning also is reflected in our assessment methods as well. So I don't know about you, but I'm not very good at just sitting in an exam where everyone's quiet and you've got 10 questions to get done in 2 hours. We do have some exams like that, but we have a range of assessments. So we do OSCEs, which are like verbal speaking out exams. So if you're a practical type person, an OSCE is really good for you. We do presentations where you present your findings with maybe a PowerPoint in front of a small group of people. One of the assessments we do in the 4th year, we do a Dragon's Den. So like on TV, the Dragon's Den, you have to present an idea where you want to change the world of midwifery. And they don't give you money, unfortunately, but it's to a panel of people and they would say whether or not they would buy into your idea with a bit of a business plan. And that's the whole idea about being a leader and being a change maker for the future. So we really integrate those assessments well into the curriculum that we're delivering for you as well. Now, I talked about our learning being 50% in the classroom and 50% in the workplace, and that is also reflected in our assessments as well. So you'd be assessed for various modules in the classroom, but also you're also being assessed in placement as well. So how you are with supervisors, with your midwives who are supervising your practice, and they'll be commenting on your ability to perform the skills and have the knowledge that's expected at each level of the programme. So I said at the start, we have a range of different placements of where you're going to go to with this learning. Now, we do have 3 hospitals in Leicester, which we utilise, but we've also branched out to Coventry and Northwest Anglia as well, and to Kettering. And the reason we've done that is to maximise on our spaces for students to go so they have the best experience, because there's a limit of how many babies being born, and we don't want lots of students to be fighting over the birth and experiences and things like that. So to put students in different places, it means you get more of an opportunity to achieve the proficiencies in the birth and the experiences that you need. So you may be thinking, you know, if you live sort of Coventry way, you might think, oh well, that fits really well, because in those blocks I can live at home, and maybe in term time when it's theory I can live in Leicester. You know, there's lots of flexibility in that, which is really great. We have a dedicated home birth team here in Leicester and Leicestershire, so you do a placement there. We have lots of specialist midwives. We're a really busy unit in Leicester, so there's lots of things going on where you'll really learn from the wisdom of those midwives as well. We do a placement at a fertility centre, so before even pregnancy has begun, you get to see life starting, which is exciting, and you do some placement in the neonatal unit, and then of course your elective as well. Holly, would you like to talk about how we record your placement achievements?
Absolutely. I'll just wait for it to switch over. There we go. So we are going to talk about something called the MORA. So this is now the eMORA. It's a document that you have across the whole of the 4 years, and it's set by the professional NMC standards for midwifery. So it's a national, guide of what you should achieve across the 4 years to be a midwife. So all people who qualify as a midwife have these same things to achieve. So it's a big old document, and it has a lot of elements across it. So you'll have antenatal elements, you'll have intrapartum elements, postnatal, neonatal, and then you're promoting excellence as well. There'll also be space in here to record your practice episodes. So when you've cared for women, writing those in. And then through that, you should also be able to achieve some of the proficiencies that are in each of these sections. And then you reference that to the woman that you've cared for. Also in here, there is opportunities for the women that you've cared for, or families of the women that you've cared for, to give you service user feedback. And I think that's really important to know how you're doing, not just from a supervisor level, but from the people that you care for as well, because it's really important that we know, how they're feeling and anything that you could do to improve on as well. There's also your supervisor that you'll be assigned to per placement, and they grade you per placement as well. So there's a section of that at the end for them to grade you on, and they'll look across all the things that you've achieved as well and summarize it in there for you. And there's also a reflection page as well. So if you're struggling to get anything, signed off, or if there's things you've not managed to witness, you can also write a little bit of a reflection on that to help you get those signed as well, or just to help you reflect on how you best work and what you think's going well, what you think's not going well. You've got your hours obviously that you'll record, so it's 600 hours across each year. And then, like it says at the bottom there, you get your grade for this module. So this one's 75%, and then this is combined with your maths assessment, which is the 25, and that makes a 30 credit module. So this one's just as important as it is to submit a really good assignment. So it's a really important document, and it follows you the whole way through. But yeah, back to Lucy.
So this slide here just shows you some of the places where our students went last year. So Japan, Sri Lanka, Abu Dhabi, Wales, Netherlands, Canada, UK. Really, really exciting experiences that our students did. So you might want to start thinking about that already. You might think of places you want to go and explore. We tag it on to the end of the 3rd year and it finishes as the year finishes. So if you wanted to stay there for an extra length of time for a holiday, that is also a really great thing to do because you've already flown out there. Now, a great thing about going overseas for an elective is that we have something called the Turing Scheme, which is a government collection of money that can fund electives. So if you go abroad for more than 28 days, you can get funding for this. So that's something that we'll talk about. So if you're thinking, gosh, I'd never be able to afford that, or we don't have a lot of money in our family, whatever, there are opportunities for everyone, and that's really exciting. So our facilities, we have a simulation suite, so you can see here where we get to practice our skills. We have a home birth room, so practicing what it'd be like having a more confined space with sofas and working around things like that. And I've also mentioned the dissection room, which is quite a unique learning facility as well. And we talked about the leadership aspect going through every year, but we also didn't talk about that you're assigned to a leadership learning set. So every year, the students will be put into smallish groups of maybe 8 to 10 students, and somebody who's a leader in the profession, in the NHS, maybe they work in the hospital or in community or in a management sort type of way, they will meet with you maybe 5 or 6 times a year and just talk about developing you as a leader. And in real life, you don't always often get this. When you get a job, you don't always have people who are very senior who want to feed into you and want to help you grow and develop you and mentor you. You often have somebody maybe the next level, but these guys are really quite senior, and it's quite a privilege to have them on board and have them on your team. So this is a really great thing that we offer in terms of developing your leadership. And also every year we do a leadership portfolio. So by the end of the 4 years, you have a portfolio of evidence to take to a job and say, look, this is what makes me stand out as not just a midwife. I've also got these skills as well that I've demonstrated. I'm going to whiz through the rest really quickly. So we've told you lots about our academic programme and things like that, but we're also an excellent university for support as well. So it's not only just support to achieve well, we have lots of that as well at the university. If you struggle at all with maybe you have a learning need and things like that, lots of support to give you that equity and help you achieve to your maximum as well, but also about your mental health as well, and lots of pastoral care. So you can see from this list here, we have a huge amount of people who can input and help develop you as a clinician, but also help you get that work-life balance as well. We do sort of things from very small, so sort of like small mentoring groups, one-to-one with a personal tutor, to bigger things as well. And I'd probably say your greatest support is your peer group. So being in cohorts of no bigger than 50, you get to know each other really well, and you're all going through the same things as well. And over those 4 years, you do find you get really close to everyone because you've lived life with them as well. So a really great cohesive feel to studying here at Leicester. So quickly, just to finish off, if you're thinking maybe this is the course for you, we're asking if for A levels for ABB. You can see here we've got the UCAS code here as well if you're wanting to fill that in. For those A levels, we do ask for a science-based subject. That can be psychology though, it doesn't have to be chemistry or biology. And we do request at GCSE that you got level 5 or equivalent of C at maths and English and a science. And it's not because we think you can't develop later on, but we know having that fundamental skill of being able to do maths is really important for the numeracy aspect of the course, where you have to calculate medications, and getting a decimal place in the wrong place can be a matter of life or death really in our world. So that is really important. You may want to come into this course with a BTEC, in which case we're asking for 3 distinctions, and we need that to be in a health related subjects, or maybe an access course, and for that we're asking 60 credits, 30 at least at distinction and 15 at merit. Or if you've done a degree before, we're asking for a 2-1. But remember, when you're doing your personal statement, it's not just about being a midwife. Of course it's that, but it's also this course has got the leadership, so think about that as well. What could you demonstrate that you have leadership qualities? We don't expect you necessarily to have experience of being a midwife. It's very hard to get work experience in a midwifery area, but if there's transferable skills that you can talk about where you've demonstrated leadership and you've taken on responsibility, that's really fantastic. So what happens next? You apply through UCAS. If you've got the grades we're looking for, we'll be sending you an interview. Interviews are quite exciting because they're not boring like a panel with lots of people asking you deep questions. We do what's called multiple mini interviews. We have 8 stations. We say it's, 6 stations. We say it's a bit like speed dating. Each one lasts 8 minutes. The bell rings, you move on to the next one, and all of those are pulling out different characteristics about you and assessing your knowledge of the NHS 6 C's. So you might want to Google those and look up what do those mean. We use all different people in our interviews. It's not just academics. We use students, actors, service users, so everyone can get a really good idea of who you are and what you could bring to the profession as well. And also, if you mess up one of the stations, it doesn't matter so much because you've got another 5 to correct it as well. So as we said, we're a unique and pioneering course. We've got excellent facilities. This leadership component runs all the way through. We work collectively with lots of different disciplines. You graduate not only with that midwifery skill and knowledge, but also with a master's degree. Great holidays, forgot to mention, anyone on a healthcare course gets a free iPad, so to help you study as well. Leicester's a fun place to be. It's vibrant, it's diverse. I think it's meant to be fairly cheap to live as well, and we have award-winning lecturers. So sorry, I've gone slightly over there, but has anybody got any questions? Holly, was there anything that we whizzed over? I was conscious of finishing in 30 minutes. Was there anything you wanted to add to?
No, not necessarily. I think we covered everything really well.
Why did
we've
you
gone through the
choose?
interview process.
Why did you choose Leicester?
So I really like the idea of the masters. I also loved the idea of it being such a diverse community, and I feel like that's definitely something that I'll take forward into my career. It's such a diverse community, and it is excellent for transport links. It's a great place to live as well, and it just offers a lot that other universities didn't offer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Holly said, it's a really diverse community. So Leicester is, I think, the first super diverse city, which means there isn't a ethnic majority. So a huge mix of people, cultures, populations, community groups, which is really exciting. So if you train at Leicester, you could work anywhere. You really could, because your experience will be really varied and really quite great, and that's exciting. That's an exciting place to be. We're a really busy tertiary unit in the hospital, so babies come from all over to attend the cardiac unit here at Leicester. We have award-winning diabetes speciality as well, so those sort of things get lots of investment, and lots of people come to work here because of the exciting things that are going on and things that are changing. So it's a exciting place to be.
We've got a question, I think.
Yeah, we have got one question. So what happens if someone doesn't get 80, 90 or 100% in the maths test?
Okay, well, like any assessment, we'll give a second attempt as well, but sometimes it's maybe it's because you need a bit of extra support. So we talked about having the Centre for Academic Achievement, so we have lots of academic support here. So if it's that maths isn't your strong point, we can link you up with somebody who can give you some strategies to really help with that, so that you are achieving those grades. I can see the question that says, what type of maths is it? So rather than it being something like quadratic equations, which I've never worked out how that fits into my normal life, it's applied maths. So working out things like drug doses based on things like weight and how often you need to have the medication, things like that. Holly, you tell us a bit more about the Safe Medicate, because you've been doing them for 4 years, haven't you?
I have. So it was a big worry for me as well, because I was also someone that struggled with maths. It's things like calculating how many tablets someone would need. So if you've got a 1 gram dose of paracetamol, there's 500 milligrams in each tablet, so they'd need 2 tablets. That's one example of the questions. There's also IV medications, so you're measuring up in your syringes the amounts after you've worked out the calculation. And a lot of the calculations do stay the same. So once you've got those calculations and you've learnt them, a lot of the application is very, very similar. Like Lucy said, you can get some body weight based. So you times the person's body weight by the amount, and then that gives you exactly how much that person would need. But you do find that you do apply it to practice as well, because you do observe things like the drugs rounds when you're on your ward and your delivery suite placement. So you do have that experience with medications as well. But as someone who struggled with maths, the practice is perfect. It's really, really helpful.
It's probably a bit like if you're learning to drive and you're doing a theory test, and I don't know if you've done this, but you can read a highway code like as a dry book, but you can also get an app where you learn modules and you learn different sections, and then you do tests, and often you learn how to do it from looking at the tests, and that's a bit like Safe Medicate. It's applied math, so you'll get it. Next question. Shall I read that out?
So the next question is, do you have a set grade for contextual offers, or does it depend?
Well, I'm not sure I know what that question means.
I think it means like if they weren't to get the grades, does it
right.
depend on the context of the situation?
So you mean if you didn't get your provisional grades? Is that what it means?
I think so, because the question below is about predicted grades not meeting the entry requirements.
Sure. So yes, even if your provisional grades are just a little bit off what we specify, it's worth submitting it anyway and putting lots into your personal statement about why you'd be a really good investment for us, because if it is just 1 grade or something and maybe you're bumping it up with something else, we do look at people's applications individually. We do look at your personal statements, so it's still worth a try. We wouldn't take people with things like a 3 or 4 in maths, just because we don't want to set you up to fail. So we think that's really important to have that fundamentals, but there is a little bit in some of the bit of give in some of the other ones. And if, say, you didn't get your predicted grades but we'd offered you a place, there's sometimes a bit of give in that as well, because other people don't always get the grades. Some people get higher, some people get lower. So yeah, it's worth a try if this is something that you're interested in.
I think that's all of the questions now. So we've got a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you'd like to get across, or hang on, there might be another question actually that's just come in. Okay, so there is another question. If someone gets 99% in their 4th year for the maths test, would they have to redo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 100% is really important to get, because like we said, we're dealing with medications and we're dealing with people. It's not just maths on a piece of paper. It really does matter. So you often get a second sit, and sometimes a discretionary 3rd sit as well. But hopefully, because those grades increase as the years increase, so we expect 80% in the 1st year, 90% in the 2nd, 3rd year 100%. So it's a bit like a test year almost, and then 4th year 100% as well. They're not changing, they're not getting harder. You're just building on that level of maths. And lots of people get 100% their 1st year. It's not that it's so hard by the 4th year nobody can manage it. It's just building on what you've already done, and that confidence, and you've already put it in practice as well. I can hear you worried about the maths, whoever's putting that question. But like Holly said, she really worried about the maths. We're not asking for mathematicians, but we are asking for basic maths that you can do safe calculations. We teach it you all, so and we give you extra support if you need it. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful.
Okay. So I think that is the last of the questions. Now I will drop a link in the which I'll just drop in now, a link to the undergraduate page on our website. So if anyone does need any more information, you can go ahead and find it on there. But yeah, thank you for everyone for attending today and for a great talk.
Thank you for presenting, Sam. Thank you.